Hey there, Roots! Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you're all having a great Mother's Day. Hope you did something nice for your mom. Hope you made her breakfast in bed, or you brushed her hair, or you washed her feet for her. I know that's all things that I did for my mother today. Hope you're enjoying your quarantine. I know that I kind of have been, maybe a little too much. I really love to be at home. I love to not do anything. I have played so many games of solitaire, but it's just one of my favorite things to be home and to be cozy. So today I invite you all, let's all just get a little cozy. So first I want you to light a candle. Then I want you to grab your favorite hot drink, coffee, tea, hot chocolate. And then I want you to put on your comfiest clothes. Today I am wearing my brand new velour tracksuit. Yes, it is a matching jacket and pants straight from Goodwill. Yes, we went as soon as it opened. So now that you're all cozy, let's hop on into a little bit of the lesson for tonight. We're going to talk about Jesus calming the storm with his disciples, and it's in Mark 4. So I'll go ahead and read that. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" So that is a Bible story that if you grew up in church, you've probably heard it a million times. But I read this story one time and I kind of read it in a different way, kind of focused on the disciples. I just want to go through verse by verse and talk about some of my observations and how I've kind of been able to apply them to my own life and how you probably can too. First, in verse 35, the very first verse of this passage, it says, "When evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, 'Let's go to the other side.'" So knowing that Jesus planned out this journey across the Sea of Galilee, like knowing that he planned it out, I know that Jesus had to know about that storm. Like, God knows exactly what's going to happen. He's planned our days out. And so that just, as we go through the rest of the verses, knowing that Jesus led the disciples through this, but that he knew about the storm and he still brought them through it, I think will just give us a little frame of reference for the rest of the story. So then we'll go down to verse 37. It says that this storm came up and the waves broke over the boat. It was nearly swamped. And then in verse 38, it says, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. First of all, I admire Jesus' ability to nap at a time like this. My family gets on me for my naps all the time, but I'm going to tell them from now on, I'm just doing what Jesus would do. WWJD, Jay would take a nap. And then the disciples, they see the storm, they know it's coming, and then the storm's happening. The boat is about to flood, and Jesus is asleep. I don't fault Jesus for this. You know what? Why didn't the disciples wake him up? Why did they let Jesus, who had been performing all these miracles, had been healing people and feeding the 5,000 and, was the Son of God, why did they let him sleep? And so as I was reading this, that is the part that stood out to me the most. Why didn't the disciples wake Jesus up? It seems crazy. But then I thought about it, and sometimes we do the exact same thing. It's not that Jesus is sleeping, because we know Jesus is in heaven. He doesn't sleep. The Bible says God doesn't sleep. He doesn't rest. He's always with us. But sometimes he's right there, and we don't ask him to help us, I don't think most of us find ourselves caught in storms, most of our lives. We're not out fishing in a little tiny boat and getting caught and about to drown, but we may be caught in another storm. You're in your algebra class and you have no idea what's going on, and everybody makes fun of you all the time when you ask questions, and then you hate that class and you don't learn anything because you're stressed all the time. That's a storm I went through when I was in 8th grade. Maybe you're new in a new school, and you go off somewhere and you feel like you don't really have many friends and you're really lonely and everybody else seems to have all these best friends and you feel like you don't have any. That's a storm I went through when I got to college. Or maybe you finally got your dream job and they told you that there's this thing called coronavirus and you are unemployed and you don't know what you're going to do. That's a storm I'm in right now. So maybe you haven't gone through the exact same storms, but I know that we've all been through a storm and we're all kind of in one right now. And so there's Jesus who can do anything for us. He does exceedingly abundantly above what we could even ask of him to do. And sometimes we just don't ask him anything. We sit there in our storm and Jesus is right there. He's maybe not asleep, but he's right there. And we're like, oh no, I'm gonna die in the storm. How crazy is that? Isn't that crazy? But we do it all the time. We forget to pray sometimes. Sometimes you're so caught up in what you're going through that you just forget. You forget that there's somebody there that knows what you're going through, that can actually help you. You're so busy trying to do everything on your own that you forget to ask for help. Sometimes we know that we can't do everything on our own, but we're still feeling like we have to. Sometimes we feel like, no, this is just a problem that I've got to get through. I've got to be strong. I've got to take the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I've got to do all this. And we think Jesus doesn't want us to ask him for help. We think Jesus wants us to do it by ourselves. That's not true. We literally can't do it by ourselves. We can't do much of anything by ourselves. I think sometimes we're scared to ask Jesus for help. You remember when you were little, when you have a bad dream at night and then you wake up and you just want your mom, and so you go to her room. Maybe I'm the only one who do this, but I was so scared to wake my mom up at night. If I got woken up by a bad dream, I would just sit outside her door and I would just sit there and work up the courage to go inside and wake her up and tell her I was scared. Sometimes I feel like we do that to Jesus. We're like, oh no, he's asleep. He's doing things. I don't want to bother Jesus. It's not a bother to Jesus. Literally he says, cast all of your anxieties on me. He says, cast your burdens on me and I'll give you rest. He tells us that constantly, but we're still scared. I think another one is that we don't know how to ask for help. But it's so simple. It's just a prayer. It's just praying to Jesus, can you help me? I can't do this. That's all you have to say. It's not that Jesus doesn't know, but you just have to ask. You have to surrender it to him. So in our next verse, verse 38, it says, Jesus is asleep, and then the disciples woke him, and they said, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? The disciples get a little attitude with Jesus. Can you imagine? The disciples are like, wow, nice of you to wake up. It was probably Peter. You can't not ask for help and then be upset that somebody didn't help you. It doesn't help anyone. Nothing gets solved. You probably do it sometimes too. But yeah, just don't get a little attitude with Jesus, because they're like, don't you care if we die? Of course he cared. But why didn't the disciples care enough to go ask for help? If you have a sickness and you're on the verge of death and somebody's like, here's some medicine, I'll put it right here, and you're just like, guess I won't take that. It's so ridiculous, but it shows you, if you don't pray over your situation and over your problems, what's the point? It really is kind of, you're working against yourself. So then in verse 39, it says that Jesus got up and he told the wind and the waves, quiet, be still, and it was completely calm. So the disciples were going through this huge problem. Obviously, they couldn't stop it. They couldn't help it. But Jesus could. Just 3 words. That's all it took. I think that we think that something has to be so difficult, and it doesn't. We think that we have to be anxious and we have to worry about stuff, and we don't. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that you have to be hurting. It says that storms will come, but it doesn't say that you have to go through them by yourselves. You can give it all to Jesus every single time. He's never going to be like, no, I don't want that. I want you to be anxious right now. He doesn't do that. He takes all of it from you, and you just have to give it to him. Then in the very last verse, Jesus says, why are you so afraid? do you still have no faith? So if Jesus is saying, what's there to be afraid of? Then there's nothing to be afraid of. And so even though we may be going through a different kind of storm, he says, why are you so afraid? You have no faith? Haven't you seen what I've gotten you through every single other time? There's some Pinterest quote that I see all the time that's like, you've made it through 100% of your worst days. It sounds kind of cheesy, but it is true. Like every single day that I've been through that I thought, this is the worst day. I am stressed. I can't even breathe. I can't eat. I'm still here. I'm okay. Like you make it through them. And the only reason that we do make it through is because Jesus is helping us. He says there's nothing to be afraid of. You got this. Every single hard situation that you go through, there's something more going on. I read a quote recently in a devotional and it said, sometimes Jesus calms the storm around you and sometimes uses the storm around you to calm you. Sometimes you're in the boat with Jesus and he gets up and he says, peace be still, and everything's calm. And sometimes he takes you through the storm and he calms you inside and you still get through it. Just this week, as we get through one more week of quarantine, I pray that you would just keep giving things to Jesus. If it's situations in your home right now, you might not have as many school problems as you did. But, you have to live with your siblings all the time, so I'm sure that leads to some problems. Just give every single thing in your life to Jesus. There's nothing too big, there's nothing too small. He wants every single thing. And so just do a quick prayer, just to, hey Jesus, I can't do this by myself. I need your help. And he's right there, and he's helping you, and he's calming that storm, or he's calming you. Thank you guys so much for listening, hanging out with me. Hope you sipped a little bit of your drink. Coming up this next week, we are going to continue having these videos, but on Sunday, we are going to have church again. Whoop, whoop. So we are working on some new things at the church. Just listen out for some more information on those things. We'll have a video. We'll probably send some stuff out in the Remind app. And your challenge this week, I want you to make the best TikTok. All this quarantine time, I play solitaire and I watch TikToks, and I know you're probably doing the same thing, minus the solitaire. But yeah, we have our own TikTok. It's at i.a.g.s.m. We have some good ones on there. They're pretty good. I'm not in any of them yet. I'm a little offended by it. I know that you guys can get creative. So do a lip sync, make a craft, do a dance. Let's not do anything too crazy. So post something. If you don't have a TikTok, don't worry about this challenge. This is just for fun. But post it and then tag our account on that so we can see it. I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm excited to see what you guys can come up with. Have a great Sunday. Have a great Mother's Day. Tell your moms that you love them. Tell Jesus that you love him, and tell me that you love me down in the comments because I need affirmation. I love you guys, and I hope you have a great